For such a small group of islands, Malta has lived an extraordinarily large history. Sitting quietly in the heart of the Mediterranean, it may look peaceful today, but for thousands of years, this archipelago has been one of the most contested and strategically valuable places on Earth. Let's explore why. Modern Malta is made up of 5 islands. The largest is simply called Malta, often referred to as Malta Island, to distinguish it from the country itself. Then come Gozo and Camino, both inhabited, while Caminado and Filfla remain uninhabited. But don't let their size fool you. Malta lies just 93 kilometers south of Sicily, about 290 kilometers north of Libya, and roughly the same distance east of Tunisia. This location made it a perfect naval base, connecting Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, and that made it a target. Over centuries, nearly every major Mediterranean power tried to control Malta. The islands were ruled by the Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Arabs, Normans, Spanish, the Knights of St. John, the French, and the British. Each left something behind: language, architecture, religion, and culture, creating the unique identity Malta has today. But Malta's story goes even deeper. Thousands of years ago, these islands weren't even islands. They were part of a land bridge connecting Africa and Europe. During the ancient Miocene epoch, people and animals could cross freely. When sea levels rose, Malta became isolated, but not forgotten. The first humans arrived around 5900 BCE. Early settlers formed farming and fishing communities, living in caves and simple villages. Over time, they developed something extraordinary, one of the oldest known temple-building cultures in the world. On Gozo stands the Ġgantija Temples, among the oldest freestanding structures on Earth, older than the pyramids of Egypt. Even more mysterious is the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, an underground burial complex filled with human remains and eerie chambers carved deep into rock. But then, this advanced civilization vanished. No one knows exactly why. Some believe climate change caused drought and famine. Others think invasion or conflict wiped them out. Either way, Malta fell silent until new settlers arrived centuries later. By around 800 BCE, the Phoenicians reached Malta, turning it into a trading hub. They called it Meleth, meaning safe haven. Later, the Carthaginians and then the Romans took control. Under Roman rule, Malta prospered and gained a lasting religious legacy. In 60 CE, St. Paul the Apostle was shipwrecked on the island. According to tradition, he introduced Christianity to Malta, a faith that still defines the nation today. After the Romans, Malta became part of the Byzantine Empire, and later fell under Muslim rule in the 9th century. The Arabs left a deep influence, especially on the Maltese language, which still carries Semitic roots. Then came the Normans, reintroducing Christianity and linking Malta more closely to Europe. But perhaps the most iconic chapter began in 1530. Holy Roman Emperor Charles V granted Malta to the Knights of St. John, a powerful military and religious order. For nearly 250 years, the Knights transformed Malta into a fortress. Their greatest test came in 1565, during the Great Siege of Malta. The Ottoman Empire launched a massive invasion, but against all odds, the Knights and locals held their ground. It was one of the most dramatic defensive victories in history. The Knights went on to build Valletta, a fortified city that still stands today as a masterpiece of military architecture. But their power eventually faded. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte seized Malta. His rule was short-lived, as the British took control just 2 years later. Under British rule, Malta became a key naval base, especially during World War II. Islands were heavily bombed, but the people refused to surrender. Their resilience earned the entire nation the George Cross, one of the highest civilian honors for bravery. Finally, after centuries of foreign rule, Malta gained independence on September 21, 1964. A decade later, it became a republic. In 2004, Malta joined the European Union, stepping fully into the modern world. Today, Malta is one of the smallest countries on Earth, but also one of the most densely populated. Its capital, Valletta, is the smallest capital city in the EU, yet one of the richest in history. From prehistoric temples to medieval fortresses, from ancient myths to modern life, Malta is a living museum in the middle of the sea, a place where every stone has a story. If you think Malta's story ends with independence, it doesn't. It simply changes shape, because after centuries of being fought over, ruled, and defended, Malta had to answer a different question. What does a nation do when it finally belongs to itself? At first, the transition wasn't simple. Even after independence in 1964, British forces remained on the islands for years. It wasn't until 1979, celebrated as Freedom Day, that the last foreign troops left Maltese soil for good. For the first time in thousands of years, no empire stood behind or above Malta, and that moment changed everything. Malta began reshaping its identity, not as a fortress or colony, but as a bridge between worlds. Positioned between Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, the country leaned into diplomacy, trade, and international cooperation. It chose neutrality, avoiding military alliances while strengthening its voice in global conversations. When Malta joined the European Union in 2004, it marked another turning point, not a surrender of control, but a strategic partnership, a small nation stepping onto a much larger stage. But Malta didn't leave its past behind. Walk through the streets of Valletta, and you'll still see the legacy of the Knights of St. John carved into golden limestone walls. Massive bastions overlook harbors that once held war fleets and now welcome cruise ships. Nearby, the Grand Harbor still carries echoes of sieges and blockades, but today it's filled with ferries, yachts, and quiet reflections of a peaceful skyline. And beyond the cities, the deeper past still whispers. On Gozo, the ancient Ġgantija Temples continue to stand, silent, weathered, and older than almost anything humanity has built. No one fully understands how or why they were created, only that they remain. Even the language tells a story. Maltese is the only Semitic language written in the Latin alphabet, a living fusion of Arabic roots, Italian influence, and English vocabulary. It's not just a way of speaking, it's a reflection of every civilization that ever touched these shores. But modern Malta isn't just about history, it's about contrast. Ancient temples sit minutes away from luxury resorts. Medieval streets lead to tech hubs and financial centers. Fishing boats share the sea with cargo ships and private yachts. And perhaps most striking of all, Malta has gone from being one of the most invaded places in history. No longer a prize to be captured, but a destination to be experienced. Yet the island hasn't forgotten what it endured. During World War II, Malta was one of the most heavily bombed places on Earth. Food ran scarce, buildings collapsed, survival itself became uncertain. And still, the people held on. That resilience didn't disappear with peace. It became part of the national identity. Today, the George Cross awarded to Malta is still embedded in the country's flag, a reminder that this small nation once stood at the center of a global storm and refused to fall. So when you look at Malta now, calm, sunlit, and surrounded by blue water, it's easy to miss what lies beneath. This isn't just an island. It's a crossroads of civilizations, a survivor of empires, a place shaped by conquest that ultimately chose its own path. And maybe that's what makes Malta truly extraordinary. Not its size, not even its history, but the fact that after thousands of years of being fought over, it finally became something no empire could ever claim.